Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed many successful Kickstarter campaigns. A bunch of them you have heard on this show, including one last night. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now, listeners of my show can actually drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get 5% discount off of their first order. So that is mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab to get 5% off your first order. And that's for everybody out there that needs to print something, whether it's Kickstarters, flyers, books, you name it, they can print it. And so without further ado, I have professional wrestler Nate Matthews with me. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I am super, super excited because we've been wanting to make this happen for almost 3 weeks at this point. And obviously your schedule and my schedule just sometimes doesn't meet, but we're finally here. So I am super curious before we get into stuff, and we're about to get somewhat controversial. But before we do, I am curious how you got into wrestling.
Yeah, man. So lifelong wrestling fan, right? I was 7 years old, and my dad got WrestleMania 10, so it tells you my age. It was 1994. So I'm a 7-year-old kid, right? And you got Bret Hart in the opening thing with Owen Hart, and Bret, and Yokozuna in the main thing, and he takes the world title. And so I'm this kid, right? And so I'm enamored immediately. And it's like, so I'm a hitman mark at this point, right? My dad gets me the glasses, the whole deal. So from there on, it was pretty much that. I was a wrestling fan, man. Took me to shows. Got to see with him ECW live back in South Bend, WCW Thunder I went to, WWE house shows, like back when it was WWF. Backyard wrestled, right? Amateur wrestled, the whole deal. Telling everyone I'm going to be a pro wrestler when I grow up, right? Well, without going into details, you get out of high school and some life things happened. My dad ended up in jail sort of thing. I got other responsibilities. It just doesn't happen. And so then you go on in your life, and I've been wrestling over 4 years now, so about 5 years ago-ish, someone says to me at a family thing, hey, man, you should have done the pro wrestling thing. You look at you like work out, you got the long hair, you look like Triple H, and it just hits me, and I'm like, man, I can still do it. I'm a personal trainer, right? I stay in good shape, and I'm like, dude, I think I'm going to fucking try this. I'm looking out for schools, Didn't find the school I was looking for. Ends up kind of a weird, I'm going to piss him off, kind of ended up with like a hodgepodge, like not official training, right? And so I'm kind of training each week with like different people, and it's not like a cohesive like training school, right? But I'm bumping and I'm hitting the ropes and things, and I'm learning, and I get thrown into matches like when I'm not fully trained at first, shit like that. So that goes on for a little while, and find a little bit more cohesive training, right? And I told myself when I started, right, because I'm like, man, I'm like 30, starting fucking wrestling. I told my girlfriend Sarah, I'm like, we'll see how this goes, right? If I take one bump and I hit the ropes, that's cool, right? I can look back and say I did that. If I have a match ever, that's cool. I can say, look, man, I did a match, and why the hell not? And if not, whatever. And here we are. It didn't take long, right? It like hit the ground running. All of a sudden, they're like, man, you're natural. And that was my name initially, the natural name Matthews. It just kind of clicked, right? Next, can you wrestle this Friday? I'm like, yeah, sounds great. And here we stand today, and it's going pretty well.
And so obviously, you're different than a lot of the young guys coming in because you have 10 years of life experience, and, you're just not thrown in there where stuff, you come right out of, high school training in a wrestling school and you're 18, 19, you haven't seen the world. I'm 28.
Right.
And so what is that like? Because you came in with a lot more wisdom about how the world works. And also I would imagine that a promoter who's 50 can't speak to you the same way they're going to speak to an 18-year-old to some degree, because there has to be, you're more, I guess, that promoter's peer to some degree versus, a freshly washed up, 19-year-old who doesn't know shit about the world.
Correct. That's actually a really interesting question, and I don't get that much. I get a kick out of that. So, like, it's a fair point, right? So when I'm 30 or so and decide to become a wrestler, like, yeah, you're right. Like, I've run a business for over a decade. I like to think I'm fairly intellectual and fairly successful in the world outside of it. And so a couple things. One, you go into wrestling, and I try to have that, like, a mindset of personal responsibility and own where you're at and accept it and go into this thing right. Like, I don't want to, go in and let them beat the shit out of you and haze you and talk down and just kind of go with it. I knew what I was getting into, right? And so part of it's that you go into this training, and it's funny when you like kind of a grown man and been kind of got your shit together, quote unquote, and then you go in and they're like, "Hey kid, run fucking laps," and I don't want to hear your shit. And you know what I mean? Like the hazing. So you go into it knowing that, and so that helped, right? And I've been through shit. I was a wrestler back in the day. I think that helped me a little bit. I was already kind of an athlete, and I went into it with that right mindset. Like, we're going to handle this like a fucking adult, and we're not going to bitch, and we're just going to do it. Then the other dynamic that's very interesting to me is you do share a lot of locker rooms and training with 19-year-old guys and 22-year-old guys. And it's kind of wild because I feel like there's more of a generation gap with my generation and that generation than maybe you would guess looking into a wrestling show from the fans. Tremendous generation gap. So I get to learn a bit about the younger culture. I get to see a lot, even in all the inequities and everything. But it's good. A couple things being able to run with young guys, and like they used to say, "Oh, you young guys," they'd lump me in. I'm like, brother, I got Ray coming in on this beard, like, so I can hang with them. But I will say, without rambling too much, and I'm guilty of that, I think that it helped me, and I think that it helps me to this day. I have more of a business mindset. I've been through a lot of hard life, but we've all been through it. I've been through a lot of bullshit. You learn, you grow. And I think going into it for all the 10 years I missed or whatever, if you wanted to go that route, I think it really helps. I know how to navigate business and interpersonal relationships and dynamics of different personalities and things. And I think that's been a positive overall. Only problem is I'm getting fucking old, man.
I'm 28 and I feel old. And I mean, I've gone through a whole business thing, and I'm restructuring and I'm moving money around. So I know all about what it's like to go through growing pains. In the last 6 weeks, I have exponentially changed. Obviously, you heard my sponsorship. That is brand new, 6 weeks old, which is a whole crazy different entity. And
you know how much different you are than when you were 19 because you weren't doing those things.
Oh my God, I wasn't even close to doing anything when I was 19. It's horrific.
Get out of my 19-year-old self if I saw him right now. I just say that.
Everything in the last 10 years of my life has led me to this point. And I'm still young enough to remember what I was doing when I was 19, and I was fucking shit up. And I messed up a bunch of good things that got me into this. But it's not about me. It's not about me, even though my show is all about me and my ego. It's about, we're talking about you because you're way more interesting than me.
I don't want to be that guy either. I feel like I get on a podcast and I just rant for 60 minutes, and I always think the person on the other end is like, "Well, this guy shut up, dude." Like,
and so even to talk about the locker room, and this is the part where we get controversial, is obviously Outlaw Wrestling and is a very controversial place. Some people want to talk about it, some people don't. And I know a little bit about what happened there, but for those who don't, what happened? Why do people have problems with them? And their shit's all fucked up, for lack of a better word. And there's a lot of stuff that came out of that. Sort of Me Too-esque, I think it's fair to say to some degree.
Yeah, that's a way to characterize it. So, you're talking. Yeah, no one talks about it, right? And it's funny because people ask me about it, and you generally don't talk about it, but. I guess what we're talking about is WCWO, which is, saying those 4 letters, right? I feel like it's like I just said Voldemort and the Sorcerer's Stone, right? And it's like, oh my God, he said it.
It's also very much a Midwest sort of bomb, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
First thing, I'm in the East Coast. I'm in Connecticut. Okay. So I'm in the Boston, Connecticut, Jersey, New York area.
On that note, because I was curious, how did you stumble across like Nate Matthews and like Midwest indie wrestling?
I came across because I was just going through IWTV and New Wave Pro pops up, and I'm like, oh, this is sort of what happens. And then you go forwards, you go backwards, and then also I'm a big Gary J fan. And Gary J's on a card, Aaron Williams is on a card. Aaron follows me, and then he's retweeting about Mob Rules, and I'm like, oh, what's this coming up? And you go, it's weird in which that I did not I discover wrestlers from other wrestlers, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because which is great, by the way. Not to get off topic, we'll get right back. But for guys like me, when I hear that you go, okay, dude, I got on IWTV, I saw New Wave Pro, it's like I clicked, what's this, and now we're here. That's pretty cool to me as a wrestler, right? To know that someone gives a shit other than like the kid that saw me do a suplex,
Because I also discovered Don't Die Miles, Anakin Murphy was on, and a few others. Obviously, I'm hitting up. I also came across, Earl.
Did you say Miles?
What?
Did you say Miles?
Yeah, Don't Die Miles.
Yeah, okay, it broke up a little bit. Very good. Yeah.
I'm making sure I didn't get his name wrong because you're making me already sweat enough. Like, this is really bad.
Well, speaking of making Miles sweat, I'm kidding. So that's awesome. And we'll talk about New Wave Pro, but to go back, right? So, goddamn, it's been like a couple years. No, I don't know, year and a half. No one really talks about that stage. So after I trained at kind of random places and worked some like wrestling matches at VFWs and schools and different things, I met Don Basher. So Don Basher saw me at some fucking school I wrestled at, this thing, and Don Basher's, he passed now. Last year he passed, but he ran WCWO, and old school wrestling promoter, right? Kind of that guy. And he comes up to me in the back and he's like, what did he say? Something like, never seen you, kid. You got some potential, blah, blah, blah. Here's my card when you want to really train, right? Sort of thing. Okay. Great. And then the place I was at kind of folded. And so here I'm sitting here. It's like, well, got a little momentum from wrestling. Kind of want to go further on this thing. Let's call this fucking guy. And he even gave me a fake name at the time, which threw me off. And I called him like, Steve. And he's like, who's this? So anyway, they do the whole thing. Show up to a show on Friday, man. We'll get you training. So he's like, even though you've worked and you've trained some, you still got to go through my training and blah, blah. So I start, which is good. It's good. So I get in the books and I do like, I guess I signed on to the year of like training at WCWO. I've already trained and stuff, but it's like the understanding that you're probably gonna start wrestling soon too here. Like, we're gonna make you train a little bit first before we just throw you in and whatever. So, and that didn't take long. And I don't know, a month or even two-ish of just training with him. He's like, all right, bring your gear Friday. We're gonna have you work. I'm like, oh, cool, man. So I start doing that. And so then that becomes like my regular place, right? It's weekly. It's Friday nights. It's Indianapolis. I live just west of Indy. It works out, right? It's like, okay, it's a weekly show. It's like 20 minutes. Actually, at the time I live even closer to Indy, but that's irrelevant. So it's like, yeah, it's like makes sense, right? Weekly shows, dude. It's a great inn, and it starts going.
And it also becomes constant money. It's easy work. It doesn't deal with your life to some degree, to the fact that it's not affecting your business.
Yeah.
On a like that type of stuff where because you're not, this isn't your full-time thing, wrestling. Correct. You have a side business and a day job.
As much as that would be great, I got a kid, man. Brother's got to eat. So.
Very few people can make wrestling on the indies a full-time job.
Yeah.
It's like indie comics.
Which is funny. I will make a comment. And for those listening, those who know, they know. WCW doesn't pay. Like, they never paid. Like, I never got paid to wrestle. I can remember being in the back one day, and Basher comes up to me, and he goes, hey, come over here. Okay. Pissed off. Like, sometimes you just be pissed off, for the sake of, I guess, being pissed off. And it's like, you fucking owe me money. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm like intense on my money, right? I know my money. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you owe whatever for training, and I don't even know about you wrestling these shows or something. I'm like, hold on, what? And I'm going, dude, I don't know. I think I did owe like a little, like I owe like last $100, right? He's acting like I owe something substantial, $400 or $500, or I'm way behind or something like this. And I'm like, I'm not behind, man. And I kind of told him, I said, I've got my receipts. One moment. And I go and I just like show him the receipts, and I'm like, hey, like, you're wrong, man. Oh, okay, I had the wrong thing. I'm like, God damn. So anyway, go wrestle match. So yeah, you don't really get paid there, but it was a great place to get the reps in, right? So it starts as that, and it's local, and it's pretty well known actually, and a lot of good workers come through there. And so what was positive is, and it's okay to say that. So I'm working there every week, Fridays, and doing the other little traveling shows in random towns and shit, and the Saturdays and all that. And I'm training too. And so he's bringing in a lot of really good workers. And pretty quickly, I got, I guess, fortunate enough, and that's one of the positive things that happened there to me, is I got fortunate enough to work a lot of really good workers who were levels above me. You know what I mean? And it was one of those, like, I won't name names in that regard, but you bring in a good worker, and they say, hey, you know, I got this Nate Matthews guy. He's coming up. I think he's got maybe some potential. Work him. You know what I mean? I think he can try to go. He's a year in or whatever, which is great. And I'm that kind of guy. It's like, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but it's like, I'm fucking going in. Let's go. You want to go try to do the best match I've ever had? Let's just see how this goes. So that really helped me grow, I think, as a wrestler in those early stages. And I think it was instrumental because it kind of gave me like I don't know, a little rocket fuel strapped to my ass, I guess, and moved me along quicker. And it forces you, and I love that, though. I love being forced into, like, wrestling a guy that's way better than me and just going out there and going, all right.
There are so many interviews that I had no right to be doing, and I did that. It forced me to become bigger. You know, it's the idea that, you know, my sponsor. I'll tell a quick story about my sponsor.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I was running out of money, and I wasn't going to make it to the end of the year if I didn't get a sponsor. And so things force you to evolve. And this entire show evolved as well because I was so backed up in my regular show. Sure. It was not live, that COVID hits, and I'm like, hey, I got to stay relevant. And it's crazy when you're forced to evolve and you're forced to start interviewing people who you have no right to interview, and you got to step up because you don't want to look like an asshole.
Yep.
And it's kind of crazy when you don't want to look bad, you put effort in, and then you're like, oh, snap, I just did this one. And then you treat the next one like it. And then all of a sudden, you're getting better and better and better.
Yes.
And I'm still punching above my grade in a lot of ways, but sure, I'm getting closer to that punching point, I guess, or the punching bag now. And it's crazy. But obviously, even talking about some of those names, obviously, Lord Crew is one of them.
That's funny you know that.
Because I like him. He's killing it right now. And then obviously Ace Perry's another. And Ace Perry is playing. Obviously, Matthew Galloway's, Trip Cassidy, who I love, S.P. Maya. I'm probably getting that name wrong.
S.P. Maya, yeah. You're going way back. It's like the way back machine.
And then Dale Patrick, too, is another good one that spoke.
Absolutely. And I still see Dale quite often. I think I talked to him today. Actually, I did. So to your point, that's great. I don't remember who said it, fucking author or something. It's like, when you are truly ready for a thing, it puts in its appearance. And I kind of believe that, right? Like, you just have to have some sort of insane self-confidence, because, not to get too philosophical, but I'm like, the way I look at it is, I'm on this earth one time as far as I know of. I don't know what happens after. So we're just going to fucking go for it while we're here, because there's at least certainty that I get to, like, attempt to wrestle tonight. And this could be the last time. It could be a one-off thing. But, so yeah, dude, absolutely. You kind of adapt. You say evolve, which is funny because it's kind of like my whole gimmick, right? But you adapt to it. You adapt to the circumstances that you get thrust into. And it's funny. I had a history teacher back in the day.
One of my favorite sayings is that if you make the right moves, because one of the fears that I have, and I'm launching a project on November 1st, and it could fail or it could be the best thing I'm doing. Right. And one of the things is that if you make the right moves behind the scenes, you will be found. And people will find you, and the right people will find you. And it happens all the time in business. So, you know, you see successful people getting deals and getting stuff. Well, they're making a lot of the right moves behind the scenes, and things happen. And so it's kind of crazy. But for you, I mean, you were wrestling a bunch of people, and, you know, I don't even remember the letters because it's WCW. And then obviously we're getting paid. Obviously problems are occurring there. But you also, I don't think there was problems with wrestling talent as much as it was.
No. And on that, it's like a guy said to me once a long time ago, paraphrase, luck is where preparation and opportunity meet. And that always stood out to me as like a young guy. And so that's exactly it. You do it's like, do the right thing. So for me, that's like hit the gym, train to be the best you can. Think about wrestling outside of it, right? I used to sit here and like write out like, what moves do I do when my opponent's in the corner? Like, how do I prepare for every fucking thing, right? So absolutely. So the wrestling talent was never the problem at WCW. If anything, that's the tragedy, is that all of its misgivings prior to, you know, last year's incident. There was a fun culture. There was a family sort of thing there, and I've never said it once or been able to, but it's like there's a lot of frustrating things, but there were great relationships, a lot of great people, and those all have to go away when someone or some people maybe do things that are less than optimal. So the collateral damage of, you know, someone does a thing that's bad and we all kind of go away. The amount of like just different relationships and things that have to kind of dissipate because of that was what really bothered me. And so I've never spoke on the thing. I never said one thing. I didn't tweet. I just didn't go back. I understand everything. I get it all. So that's that. But great wrestlers, man. A lot of people I met there that I still have relationships with these days that help me
It's
grow.
very similar. What would happen there is very similar to what happened to Chikara. And that's really good. And even speaking about that, people view wrestling and they view Chikara shows, and we're all adults in the room. Everybody, we're all adults in the room here. I think we can acknowledge that bad things happen, but there's also a lot of good things that came out of Chikara. And the idea is that people viewed it as therapy. And then also, I used to live in DC, and Primetime Pro Wrestling was a very cool vibe.
Sure.
But they had a lot of problems, and it didn't help that the person who was bad and did something, and it's sort of clear, and I think the person just took the money and ran. All the wrestlers were paid, but and then that person's partner wasn't a full-time partner, and then they were going blasting on Twitter, and then certain people should not have gotten involved on Twitter that did.
Yeah,
it created a very, very bad environment.
The mob rules. Yeah,
it was three people, and it wasn't what Gary said, something very, very professional, and he said, that's not professional wrestling. It's not called wrestling. It's not called indie wrestling. It's called professional wrestling. And the word meaning that professional, you act professionally in your job. Because when you're wrestling, it's a job. And I think that's something that people don't understand. I'm a professional interviewer. I don't go shit on other interviewers, even if they've wronged me, or if a guest doesn't show up, or if a guest sandbags me. You don't see me blasting them for that reason.
Yeah. Well, you're right. We have to each conduct ourselves in some manner of professionalism amidst the chaos that is this life sometimes. But that's exactly right. The thing that's unfortunate to me, and it, like I say, it becomes unspoken, right? But there are a lot of things that we'll just finish up the WCBO thing. It's like, say I had a bunch of good matches with good workers. Say I met a bunch of great fans. I formed tremendous relationships. Met friends that I still know today. All these people, relative to the incident that canceled us, are innocent of this. They exist independent of this. Those matches exist, and it's an unfortunate thing that they kind of have to sink with the ship, and we all understand it, and it's okay. But I don't. Yeah, there's some net negatives, right, that just happen as a byproduct of these things. But that's on that last note. It's I always just saw myself as a worker there and doing that, and you step away doesn't take any value away from the positives. Right. The misgivings exist separate from that. I understand them. I don't comment on it. It's not my business in a sense. I don't feel like, and so that's that.
And then obviously and the ship has sunk, and we're not going to go sink the ship more or try to resurrect it at this point.
Right.
But I do want to talk about New Wave, because that's the new ship to be on, and that ship is like a rocket ship.
Yes, New Wave is fantastic. And New Wave, they discovered me 3 years ago when I was working at the Dove, right? I got spotted by Michael Guest, I think, and Chris A were in the crowd, and we got a message on Facebook afterwards, hey, we want you to work, and blah, blah. It was early, February of 2019, I think. And this last, year or so, after the initial COVID deal, I would say, when I say COVID, I always think last year when the first real shutdown happened, right? The initial, what the hell's going on? And after that came back is when I got more of a full-time role with New Wave, and there were some changes there, and it's just been fantastic. So,
let's talk about New Wave, and let's talk about Don Miles, because the two of you is really your first big feud in New Wave.
Yeah.
And so obviously you had two regular matches, and then the third match that sort of solidifies the feud was best 2 out of 3 falls matches.
Yes.
And at this point, he was just, Miles Morales, and he wasn't Don't Tie Miles. He was coming into that realm. Obviously, you were just coming into New Wave. And what was it like going through these matches and having that big 2 out of 3 falls match?
Yeah.
It actually meant something. And he was coming into who he was and what he is right now. And I think you, in a lot of ways, were coming into that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Miles is great. I love Miles. I've known him since the beginning. Since the early days, right? So that was a fun one for a handful of reasons. That we come back from COVID, okay? And I'll just fucking say it's July 10th of 2020, and it's the first show back, and it's WCW return show, and we're all in it. So much went into it. No one said a word about it ever since. You know what I mean? And it turned everyone sour because of what happened. And Miles was there, and we're all just really bummed and the whole thing sucks. And it was maybe a few weeks later that the New Wave thing is happening. I already was booked there, and I remember them saying, "Hey, we've got you and Miles together. I really just think you guys can kind of surprise everyone with a hell of a match." And I'm like, you know what? I think we can. And so I talked about this in the podcast recently, but Miles, I think was kind of down after the match he had there and the whole show and the whole thing. And I totally get it. We all are just bummed, right? And I remember being told by Jay, his significant other, that wasn't feeling the best about it, right? And like, Nate, you got this. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's go. So we get all fired up. We have a hell of a first match. It went really well. It was organic. Like, it's like that was better than we thought. We knew it would be decent, and people loved it. He I felt was reinvigorated after that. You could just see it, right? Like the organic, like before the show, it's kind of like kind of down and here for it. But
you can see if you watch the match where there are spots in that match where he's just smiling, and you could tell. And obviously, you can't tell that he doesn't want to be at work type being miserable. Like I see people like that. I see people like that. It was more though that he didn't seem 100% in it coming out. And that's not a knock on Miles.
Right. We're coming off probably the I guess the most unfortunate thing that had happened to any of us in our little wrestling careers. And so we're just kind of bummed, right? And that really just clicked. And I know toward the end, I remember I wanted to do this something crazy, right? Like a springboard top rope perk and run it. Fucking it was great. And just everyone went nuts. And even after the match, you can just see it, right? Like a shift. And I'm not taking credit for the reinvigoration, but I'm just kind of saying I was there. And then they said, dude, this match went crazy. We want to do another match with you. He gets the win in that one. And at that point, it was just the gloves were off and it went well. And they're like, okay, we got to do the blow off. And it's like a 2 out of 3. And that little fucker, though, as much as I like him, used to call me Grandpa Nate, okay? Because I said something, I don't understand Twitter, like you kids. And this guy, he fucking brings a walker out, man, to the match. The last match was a walker, and I beat his ass with it. And then there was like Grandpa Nate signs the whole thing, and it still haunts me. It's like, it's okay. It's like when I'm the Rodney Dangerfield of pro wrestling, I don't get no respect. But I digress. Since then, man, Miles took off, dude. Doing absolutely great things. I still love the dude. I see him, New Wave recently all the time. So love seeing what Miles is doing.
And this is what's great about this is that this also sort of launched your New Wave career in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because you started feuding with Aaron Atlas.
Yes.
And that led to a ladder match for the NWP Ultra Rapid title. Right. And so you had a no contest between, which I love no contest. So I'm sorry. More matches should end with the no contest. Not a DQ, not a count out, but a no contest.
Yep.
Then we have this ladder match. And I love ladder matches. I love ladder matches. I love TLC matches.
Sure.
And you won the title.
Yeah.
In that, and so that's a big push.
Absolutely. You're right. I think the Miles thing did something organic. They were like, oh, Nate and Miles, we kind of like these guys. And so they put me with Aaron Atlas, who I also have known very well. I know Aaron. Aaron is my wrestling work wife, for those who, don't ask. So
hey, don't ask, don't tell,
Hey.
I'm just saying, it's a great policy.
That's right. I'm going to get canceled.
I'm already there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The amount of things I say on my show, my sponsor's like, we don't really care because you legitimately have sold product for us more than what we paid.
Right. And if I'm on another sinking ship here, whatever, George Carlin was like my inspiration growing up, and he said a comedian's job is to find where the line is drawn and cross it deliberately. I'm just referencing that for the purpose of this podcast, but so I beat my work wife often, Aaron, and so we had the one match, we had the ladder match. First, actually, only ladder match I think I've had. He put me through a ladder too, that motherfucker. But yeah, the Ultra Rapid Champion. I'm the Ubermensch, the Uber Rapid Champion. You're right. They kind of said, "Let's run with it, see what you got." I don't know that any plans for it to be like that long of a thing, but for all my misgivings, I think that I at least attempt to take every wrestling thing and see it as a piece of work with a start and an end date. So like, okay, I got this championship ring. And it was mentioned to me, the Uber Rapid thing. It's like, boom. It's like, what can we do with this? How can I make this relevant and unique? And
oh, man, we're going to talk about all
I think it went well.
Defenses. We're going to talk about your title defenses. So,
yeah.
Because that match sort of happened at the end of 2019. And then all throughout 2020, for the majority, you held this title. And you
this year,
against Johns, Kevin Giza, Blake Wright, Gaston LaRue, Jay Chris, which we're going to talk about Jay Chris because that's
Yeah.
a big Midwest deal.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. You know, obviously, I think it was Jake. Jake was the one who sort of got in trouble with Impact for a little bit, but then he sort of made a rebound. Or was it Dave? I forget who.
I believe it was Dave.
But even still, it's the idea that it's the legendary Chris Brothers. And
absolutely. And he's back in Impact right now, by the way. Dude's killing it.
I mean, him, Sammy, all those guys are unbelievable. And
absolutely.
I mean, Jessica Havin and Sammy Callahan's wedding is going to be a phenomenal wedding.
Yeah.
To be a part of. Whoever gets to go to that, I mean, that's going to be amazing.
Sure.
I'm just saying, just the amount of talent that's going to be at that wedding. Yeah. Like if something happens and all those people, unfortunately, not make it, we're screwed in wrestling. We're screwed. I'm just saying the amount of talent that's there. But anyway, what was that like having all these title defenses and also getting back on track, all these title defenses and Jay Chris?
Yeah, man.
Facing him.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, kind of like the thing we said earlier, very fortunate the amount of really good workers I got to work. You mentioned Kevin Giza. I absolutely fucking loved that match. He's fantastic. I got to work with at Flophouse defending the belt against Aaron again, and like Mo Atlas, Joseph Schwartz. Got a lot of great matches. But Jake Chris, right? So it was right here, right now, after like kind of the second COVID shutdown, where we're doing like tapings, right? Which the first COVID shutdown, we're all sitting on our ass. The second COVID shutdown, we're going, okay, we're gonna get smarter. We'll make us do tests. We'll get cameras. We'll do closed sets, whole things. We got to still work, which is great. Coming out of that, New Wave Pro right here, right now. Huge show, dude. You got Mike Bennett, right? Mike Bennett, Cole Radrick. Just a stacked fucking card. And they're like, Nate, you got the Ultra Rapid, man. It's a big show. We're going to give you a good one, dude. And I remember kind of waiting to hear who I got. And first they announced Ace Perry. It's Nate Matthews and Ace Perry. And I absolutely love working with Ace Perry. I look up to Ace Perry. He's been another one of those. It's just great to kind of sit on the learning tree. I've worked him a few times. Had, I think, a real good match last year. So I'm fired up, right? I'm like, damn, I got a match with Ace in front of a huge crowd. Fun fact, worked Ace, excuse me, maybe a year or so ago at IWA Mid-South in a random deal at the Connorsville building where it was a new building with 5 fans. So we had a fantastic match.
And that match probably is one of the greatest matches ever because I'm a huge comic fan and I've been to a show that only had like legitly like 60 people in the entire one of the greatest shows I've ever gone to. Crowd was super into it, and it was one of the loudest shows I ever went to, which is crazy too. The fact that like all 60 of us were super stoked and all the wrestlers were so nice, it was great. It was some of the best. Like Lady Frost was on that show. So many people were on that show. Shea Edwards was on that show.
Oh, wow.
Allie Ketch was on that show.
Sure.
A variety of others. One of my favorite wrestlers, Killian McMurphy, was on that show.
Okay.
And one of the things that, and I'm a big comic fan, and all the small indie shows you go to that have 100 people there, and like the top talent are there, you get to speak to them, and you actually get close. So 5 people there is great, and hopefully it was taped. That's the only thing that matters.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And that's on a side reference that's relevant here. You just mentioned Kevin Giza. I saw Kevin Giza puts a tweet out like a week ago, and I'm going to paraphrase and fuck this up. It said 3 things. It said, always go hard. 2, it said, like, doesn't matter if there's 5 people or 1,000, and 3, we're all going to make it. And I couldn't agree more. And I knew when I walked out with Ace, even though, one, I didn't think the show was ready to start, and I hear my music, we open, I'm like, oh, my God. Go out there, and I count 4 people. I think he counted 5. And I know that Ace, he always used to say, I don't phone it in. And I'm like, this is beautiful. I don't care if there's 5. Great. There's a camera. Let's go. And very good match. Great response to it from everybody, which I thought was awesome. And so, yeah, then fast forward. Kevin Giza. God, the guy's going to go crush on him.
Yeah, just Jake Chris and Kevin Giza look the same, clearly.
Kind of. Yeah. I don't think Jake Chris goes by fucking baby girl. But so, Chris, man, the Ace has to drop. That's what it is. So, I was like, I got bad news, Nate. Ace got hey, can't make it. It's like, shit, man. Okay, who do we got? And even said, man, if you got someone you want to wrestle, let us know. We'll think, we'll see what we can do. And I'm kind of brainstorming. And I get a call back from Earl Joseph like an hour or 2 later. He's like, don't worry, got something for you. What do you got? Jake Chris. I kind of just paused for a second, right? I'm like, wait. Oh. At that moment, right? I'm sitting in my kitchen. I'm like, oh, shit. It takes you a minute to really kind of let it sink in. And then I'm fired up and I get off the phone. And it's not until after that I kind of sit there and I'm like, really feel the gravity of it, right? And I'm just like, go upstairs and I'm like telling my girlfriend, Sarah, hey. It's like, wrestle Jake Chris. Yeah, dude, and one of those examples too where Jake Chris is fantastic. And can't say enough about working with the guy and how much I learned working with him. That's for sure. So, you know, I'm like, I'm gonna watch these matches. I'm familiar with this stuff. We're gonna go. And I think we had a good match. He's so like calm and experienced, and even, in my opinion, soft spoken. And when I learned, there's so much I learned from him that's like unspoken, right? Because he didn't have to say a lot. He just went out there and he just handled it. Like, and I don't get nervous. There's one thing I've randomly got going for me. So I'm standing behind the curtain, like, we'll just see. It's like where you go and you apply for the job that you're not fucking qualified for. You know, it's like the Step Brothers and you're farting in there. But so yeah, dude, absolutely great. I realized how good he was so quickly. We lock up and within like 8 seconds or 3 seconds, I've been like flipped around, spun over, snap mirror, headlock, under the arm, over the head. And I'm just like, oh, here we go.
And what was it like to pull the win out of that? Because obviously it adds a lot of clout to the title in a lot of ways. Because, and also the fact that he was willing to put you over in a lot of ways. Because that's the other thing too, that he made you look good in this match.
Absolutely.
And that's not meaning that you're not a good wrestler.
No, you're right. You're right.
He makes people look good.
You know, and sometimes you got to do. And I said something about feet were on the ropes and you pinned him. I don't really remember, but I heard the three. And you're absolutely right, dude. Like, it was, I'd say, an honor. Kind of mind blowing. One of those two. I'm like, where am I at wrestling? How does this happen? Like, afterwards, when you're driving home, I'm like, this dude's an X Division champion, man. I grew up, buying old X Division fucking AJ Styles, Samoa Joe shit from old DVD stores, man. Watching the fucking thing above the ring, and I'm like, I just been an X Division champ. It's kind of cool, man. And here we are. It's been really good since then too. So that really is, I think, has helped. You're right.
And then obviously also facing the younger guys. I mean, Anakin Murphy, Victor Analog is another one. Yep. Was an insane match.
Yeah, the 5-way.
That 5-way elimination match, that thing was crazy. That entire card was insane.
It was. It feels like so long ago already. But yeah, we had Anakin. I worked in a singles. That dude goes, man. Right? Like, he's a scrappy dude. And I kind of like it because he's obviously smaller than me, and it kind of looks like a mismatched sort of guy. And he just like kicks me in the face and slaps me in the face and charges, and I'm like, okay.
He's very good at what he does.
Oh, he's aggressive. I love that too. He doesn't give you that like, I'm smaller and I'm timid. He's like, yeah, well, smaller, and I'm gonna fucking kick you in the face, man. So I love that. But yeah, Mob Rules is great. We had Marston, who ended up taking the title from me in Indianapolis. Then Shane Boucher, Victor Analog, and Anakin again. So
let's talk about Jay Marston, because obviously at this point you've now had the majority, I think 2020, this title, and then you drop it to him. But during that time period, you added a lot of clout to the belt. You made the belt mean something in a lot of ways.
Thank you.
And this is a problem I feel with wrestling, is that certain companies don't add things and add meaning to a belt, and they trivialize a belt, and there's real issues. I mean, AEW has tried to say, hey, we want to make our tag team legit, and WWE has had great runs with the tag belts, and they've had shitty runs with the tag belts. And AEW is sort of getting, I feel, a little stale with their tag team titles. And even Ring of Honor has gone through phases. And I could keep naming a bunch of different companies. But I think
absolutely.
But you added a meaningful position that whoever got this title from you, it's going to mean something. I mean, look what's happening to WWE with Roman Reigns. Whoever beats Roman, and hopefully it won't be Brock, but maybe it'll be some young upstart.
Sure, who knows?
Coming straight out of NXT like Killer Cross, all of a sudden that person is going to have a huge boost.
Absolutely. You're right.
Because Roman made the belt mean something.
Absolutely, he elevates it. Currently, he's elevating it still. Yeah, that's right. And I appreciate you saying that. And that kind of like what I was saying about trying to make it a meaningful thing with a start and end date. Let's have this thing. It's the way of everything in life and wrestling. It's like, I want people to look back at the Ultra Rapid, the Uber Rapid thing, and see its own little meaningful story, right? And have a kind of a mark. And I like to think that I did elevate it, and that it's cool now. It's something. It was always good. Aaron had a good run with it. And I just let's leave this better than I found it. So I didn't get to see yet what Jay's defense the other night, working at King. I think he retained. Very curious to see. And he beat me, man. He pinned me. And I handed it to him, and I said, exactly, it was like, it's yours now, brother. It's like, go get it,
And so one of the things, and I was speaking to Logan Black, and I love Logan, And Logan basically said that he wants to leave wrestling better than he found it, and he used to use the great term, and I'm going to adapt it, and I might even call some people out on it, where he said, it's the idea that where you don't have to go pick up trash, but if the person behind you throws a piece of trash on the ground, you say, hey, we don't do that. And if they pick up that piece of trash, throw it out and put it where it's belonging, and then they tell the person next to them, eventually the pieces of trash will disintegrate. At one point in that pile gets rid of. And so obviously that's very important in wrestling, that people aren't selfish in the business. And it's a real issue. And we see, people being selflessness and people being selfish. And I think that's something that is really important. I think it's really good booking. I also think it's really important that wrestlers come in and say, look, if I just had 20 title defenses or 10 title defenses and I got to wrestle some of the best, now it's the next person's time. I have to make their title defense mean something.
Sure.
When you are dominating with the title for the better part of a year, you have to make the person who beats you actually earn it.
Absolutely. No, I agree, and it's a great analogy. It's like I said, it's kind of where I like that a lot of wrestlers. I would say there's a brotherhood in wrestling that's unique, because wrestling's a tricky thing because it's entertainment, and it's high profile, and you try to be a star, and it can be very easy. You get some crowds behind you for egos to set in, right? But there has to be this sort of like altruism, which is really weird to say. But we all have to give and take a little bit, and we have to see. I think it's important we all see our place in it. Of course, we all want to be a fucking star. Main event, everything in WrestleMania, and we, of course, but it's bigger than us. And like kind of like the way I look at it is, the day will come where I cannot wrestle anymore, and I want to just be able to look back, one, be proud of the things that I did. I want to be like show my daughter and be like, hey, look, your dad was like semi cool for a minute. And then I want to think that my existence in wrestling was a net positive. That there were things that were positive that existed that people can now get to enjoy that wouldn't have existed if I didn't do it.
It's very similar in the comic world right now, where the most successful people give their time for free. And like, I'm going to be happy to be on your show. I don't have a problem being on your show because I'm successful and I want to pass the torch on.
Sure.
And again, I stated that I've been punching above my grade. When you're speaking to people who used to run DC Comics, like Paul Levitz, for almost 20 years, give or take, and he's like, yeah, I'll be on your show. How long do you need? It's very much that idea of people like Chuck Dixon or Denny O'Neil, rest in peace, Denny. And then what's happening in the indie comic world right now is there's some people who are really good and there's some people who are really, really bad. And, there needs to be a cleaning and there needs to be calling out. And it's going to be very interesting because the assholes are going to get found. They always do.
Yeah, you got to weed things out, man. And I don't know much about the comic world, but I can sense some crossovers, right, culturally.
It's going to be very, very interesting, and unfortunately, in the comic world, we can't suplex people because that's called assault. So,
yeah.
I mean, it would be much easier if we could just put up a ring. Everybody gets in the ring, and then we handle it that way. I'm just saying.
Wrestling knows one thing: that's how you settle all life's problems. Okay. But I think it was Tommaso Ciampa said at one time, and I forget what the hell it was in reference to in an interview. He said something about the locker room, and he's like, "The boys will police themselves." And there is that in wrestling, which is great, is that there is sort of enough of us that know, keep it right. You know what I mean? And that's why some of the bad actors, so to speak, kind of get weeded out. And sometimes it takes time and people have to cut that some slack. We're all human.
And then even going further into New Wave, because obviously I love New Wave. I'm sure I'm going to be at some point advertising with New Wave in a show. Either sponsoring a match or a wrestler or a live read. It's coming sooner rather than later because
very good
coming up, and hopefully, it'll be good and it'll be really fun, and I'm sure it'll be appreciated and it'll go a long way.
Absolutely, man.
I want to support New Wave because New Wave has been good to me.
Please do, man, for growing, be a part of this thing,
Yeah, I would love to buy a piece of New Wave, but that's a different discussion completely. But I digress. All kidding aside, one of the things that New Wave did is, during the pandemic, they did a lot of live tapings. They also did shows that really didn't generate money, but got wrestlers paid, and it was done in a safe way. Because I was speaking to Earl, and he was explaining it live a few months ago. And also the idea of running a few shows with like 100 people, because it is very therapeutic wrestling. A lot of
Absolutely.
people in the world have problems
Mm-hmm.
that are not solvable, where somebody might be going through a divorce or their family might be dealing with a
Yeah.
bigger issue. But for 3 hours, you're at a wrestling show, your problems dissipate or they get put on the back burner, or, it's an escape for 3 hours and then maybe you can make it another month because you had 3 hours of something nice. And
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds crazy, but everybody's been there. Um, but what was that like, wrestling in front of people, wrestling not in front of people, adjusting to all that, and then also coming back knowing that, hey, there's only 100 people here or maybe 150 people here, but we are definitely providing something that these people have missed.
Absolutely. I would say the very first time I wrestled a match, I think it was Jeffrey John, actually. Nobody watching. Like, there's a camera, and this is like, right, COVID measures are pretty serious, and we as have to take it seriously. And it was fucking weird. And the Thunderdome, I think, hadn't even on you. You're trying to understand this, and you're just like, okay, work the camera, and it's just bizarre. But you adapt a little bit. And you're right. You said something about people needed escape, man. We all face the existential crisis of that is life, and bear that burden. And who would have thunk that there would be catharsis in watching his suplex and cross bodies? But you're right. So I was glad we got to continue that going. And New Wave was one of them that did really good. Earl, I have to credit him. I call him the mad scientist of New Wave. He would get sponsors, right? Because you don't have tickets being sold. You don't have fucking Cokes and hot dogs that you're selling. And I think again, we talk about me being older. I'm a business guy, and I always laugh when wrestlers want to get paid 17 times as much. And I'm like, did you count the people out there? And have you thought of how much it costs to rent the building? But they found ways to get us paid and to keep us working. And so you adapt to it. Next, I'm getting used to that. And then we're coming back to a live show. And that I was able to get I think 1 or 2 live shows elsewhere before the New Wave thing came back. So that helped, right? I got back in front of a crowd. And it wasn't all that long, but this time we got to keep wrestling. Where last year there was like a break for a few months where we just couldn't, sit on your ass and okay.
It's a very interesting time for
Yeah.
wrestling. A lot of things. I went to a show in March of 2020. I went to one of the last shows that streamed on WTV, Butch vs. Gore in DC, and then I think Bizarre Lucho streamed, and that was sort of the last big one. And nobody had any idea what the hell was going to happen next. So very weird time as a fan. And I was
absolutely, man. Yeah, I think I wrestled a Friday night right before, and then next thing you know, I go to work on Monday, and I run a gym during the day, and you start getting calls. It's like, hey, are you shutting your gym down? I was like, no, what are you talking about, man? And then within like 24 hours, I'm shutting my gym down, not wrestling for 3 months or whatever it is, sitting at home, like collecting unemployment,
very, very weird time. And because it was so weird, and even that Bizarro Lucha show was beyond weird. And then about 7 days before that show hit, I was basically started this entire project, which is crazy, and doing live stuff. And Gary J, of all people, is the first one was pre-recorded, and then just started rolling with it because obviously adaptation needed to occur. Crazy. Don't regret it though, because it's probably one of the best things. It sounds messed up. COVID has been bad for everybody, and it's a negative thing. But for me, it forced an evolution, and it's forcing a very positive evolution.
That is exactly correct, and I think that's one of the most important things in human existence in the history of the world is that, like, life sucks, right? Shit happens that's terrible, and then everyone's affected, and it's horrible. Okay, and there's no rhyme or reason for it, and it's just the way it is. It's what you do with it, right? On that note, I'll say it here. So, like, COVID forcing you to adapt and grow, right? I'm a better person now than I was prior to COVID. I used those 2 months off of like work to make some positive changes in my life. I mentioned this slightly in the past. Again, without going too far into it. My father, who got me into wrestling, died not quite 3 years ago. Tremendous alcoholic, like lifelong career. It's the worst. It's terrible. But so he died unexpectedly, tragically. And then next thing you know, what am I doing? I'm drinking more. Okay. And I always like to drink, but right when he died, it was fucking weird how subconscious, my dad dies. I come home from work, I pound some whiskey, and I started to slowly and steadily drink a lot more, and it started to become kind of bad. And I didn't really tell a lot of people about this, and I still haven't. So, and then during COVID shutdown, right, I kind of became self-aware. I was becoming self-aware. I'm like acutely aware of my own insufficiencies. But I said to Sarah, my girlfriend, at the beginning of COVID, but during the shutdown, I was like, I'm going to quit drinking before we go back to work or whatever that means. And I fucking did. And as of the other day, I'm like 500 days sober. And now it's like a mission thing, right? And then just some other things were forged out of that, because I think growth forges growth. And by attempting to better yourself and to force adaptation and evolve, you become something greater. And that spawns even. It's like you talk about evolution. If you read Richard Dawkins, they talk about cranes of evolution. It moves it forward faster. So yeah, man, that's life, and you gotta fight back.
I've stated this before. It's the cream always rises to the top, and we were all handed something shitty. I never did anything live before, and guess what? I just jumped in. I said, "Fuck it,
go." Yeah.
What is the worst that's going to happen to me? I'm just going to get no's. I'm going to go down and
go back to where you were before. Worst case.
I mean, I'm sorry. What did you say?
No, you're right. It's like, what's the worst case? I go back to not doing it.
This thing fails. Nobody watches it. Cool. Great. Okay. I also did a cost analysis. It was costing me $15 a month. And I was like, hey, I got, like $300 to spend on this project. Yep. And at least I'm doing something, and I'm doing interviewing, and, cool. I'm at least doing a skill, and I'm just asking people. And I just started asking a lot of cool people, and a bunch of people just started saying yes. I built out parameters, and then I'm a really good interviewer now, and then I have a real skill. And it's kind of crazy when you start going into that and you start figuring out, saying, okay. And then fast forward this year, I just said, hey, I'm running out of money. What am I going to have to do? And this has forced me to change as an individual, where now my finances, and I invest a lot, and I'm a hard worker, but now I'm even tightening up my entire positions, and I'm putting all these covenants in. And my goal now for the next, 28, next 7-8 years is to become a millionaire by the time I'm 36 or 37. And I think it's doable, and I'm making those moves, and it's getting really exciting. And it's that growth just pushes growth. And
make those goals. You don't know until you try, man. Yeah,
I think it's going to happen faster. I really do.
It seems like you have the right mindset, man. It's like you have to set the goals and set the systems and work to become the person that you need to be. Jim Rohn said that. We set goals because it forces us to become the person we need to be to reach them. And
so it's crazy, but it's wild, and I think that a bunch of wrestlers who have gone through this are going to become better. I think the ones who haven't complained and haven't bitched on Twitter are really where the future.
Wait, who bitches on Twitter? Wrestlers? No.
No. Look. I get that people have problems, and I'm not going to go shit on anybody who has any mental health issues. But there's a lot of wrestlers who every day are whining and complaining. And it's like, if you spent less time complaining on Twitter and you actually did something and got a little bit creative, maybe you'd be in a better place. And
you'll like this. You said you want to be a millionaire by 36, right? There's an author named T. Harv Eker, and he writes like the fucking millionaire books, right? There's one called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Read this a handful of years ago. He had an exercise in it because, and just talk about the concept is that like complaining is something that will hold you back in life, so don't fucking do it too much. He has an exercise. He says, force yourself to not complain for 10 days. Period. I'm like, oh shit. So I've done that. I try to do it once a year, and I love it. Like my mom, who complains like about complaining. Like I remember getting her to do it, and and I remember joking. I was like, "You're gonna be out in like 30 minutes. You're gonna complain about the fact that you can't complain," and she did. But hey, wrestlers, try that. Don't complain for 10 days about anything in your life.
It's the idea that O'Shea Edwards.
Anyone try it, by the way. Yeah.
O'Shea Edwards said something, and he said, "What's going to happen?" Because at the beginning of COVID, I got to interview him, and I interviewed him, I think, in May, and maybe it was April, and I was lucky I caught him at the right time. And what he said is that COVID's going to be a great reset, where all the people,
absolutely, that's what it did for me, man.
The people who are not doing anything and aren't going to do something in the middle of COVID. Guess what? Whether you're doing something mental or you're using your brain and you're not working out, when the gates open up, all the people who did all the work behind the scenes are going to come out swinging.
Absolutely right.
And they're legitimately, I've interviewed so many people on my show in the last 22 months, and a bunch of them have started podcasts, and a bunch of them are trying to do what I'm doing, and they can't compete, even though they have more people necessarily commenting. They're not getting the same viewership. And because they haven't built those relationships, and they haven't been doing it long enough, and they haven't done all the work behind the scenes. and it's fantastic. But if you do the work behind the scenes, to everybody who's watching this and seeing this, you're gonna make it. It's just a matter of doing that. So obviously, there's a lot right there. And I know you've done some upstart wrestling stuff against Anthony Lee. He's another one. Hard shift right back into wrestling.
Yeah. Anthony Lee, man, we go way back. Yeah, dude, that was recent. Did a title for title thing, and that was like the only time I've done an upstart. I wanna go back there, but yeah, that was like a month ago. There's been a lot of little other ones, man. You know, I still wrestle regularly at BMFX. I'm still the heavyweight champion there. I don't think it's been announced, but I think I've heard that I get to beat my work wife next week, Aaron Atlas. Again, there we have a singles match. I got some other bookings coming up at some different places too that I won't name yet because it hasn't quite been announced. But absolutely, man, I think things are picking up and there's lots of booking opportunities right now. I'm pretty excited to show everybody what's coming.
And so I'm going to give you a chance to promote, but I am curious because we've been speaking for almost an hour, and I don't want to keep you away from your family and in particular, you know, your kid. Because I know how kids are, especially, you know, spending as much time with them when they're little is super important. But and I'm not giving too much away beyond that. But and no, you don't have to see your work wife. I want to make that crystal clear. I want to make that crystal clear here. I'm assuming you two don't live together. Your work wife.
No, we're not on speaking terms. No, I'm kidding. He's like in Alabama or something. I don't know where the fuck he. Anyways, he up and moved to Alabama.
But having said that, and all jokes aside, where do you think all this is going? Because you sort of things are picking up, but where do you think obviously wrestling is going? And I'm on the East Coast. The New York Comic Con is sort of the big event of the weekend, and I think it's going to be an impetus of how things are going to be ran, you know, economically, business-wise, as well as even just pop culture, and even how big events are going to be run moving forward. I think that's going to be one of the biggest test runs. And I understand New York City is not the same as the Midwest, but I do think that
I don't have much frame of reference for the East Coast, you know.
It's just that New York Comic Con is going to be catering to 70 to 100,000 people. Wow. And I don't think there's ever been a wrestling event beyond something like AEW or WWE that's done anything close to that.
Really? I didn't know that. Okay.
I mean, WWE's done, you know, with WrestleMania, like 90,000 people.
Yeah.
AEW's done big events, but I don't think it's very hard for an independent show to do like 5,000 people, from my understanding.
Absolutely. Wasn't that the whole thing with AEW at the beginning? Was I forget what it was? They said no one can sell out an indie show. I forget how many tickets they sold, and they blew it away like in an hour or something.
But
50,000 people?
Yeah. What?
Did you say Comic-Con was going to have how many people?
70 to 100,000 plus people in New York in the Javits Center. And so I think it's a big test because if that thing runs smoothly, that's a big vote of confidence on events really opening up across the United States.
Sure.
If all of a sudden, if a bunch of people come out and say, I got COVID and I just came out of New York Comic Con, I am vaccinated, that's going to be a big retraction. By definition.
Yes, in the post-COVID world. And I think it also did the thing where people realized how much we were not grateful enough for the fact that we get to like go out and do things. And so you do see people, they want to go out and do things. And it's like, what are you going to do, right? The world's tough. The world's tricky. Shit happens. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
so where do you see wrestling going and opening up in the next, you know, few months? And obviously, I don't know if you just saw, but they're saying the Delta variant is going to be sort of a little bit after Thanksgiving, and it's going to sort of drop down. And so there's real concerns about that, and even going into Christmas a little bit. And then obviously I'm curious because wrestling is tricky in November and December.
Yeah. Because I think that it was like this time last year that we had our second kind of shutdown. And I remember thinking, and I'm going to be honest, I'll say it. I don't pay a lot of attention to different shit in the news. I mean, I'm certainly very clear.
The only reason why I pay attention to it is because it affects the stock market. That's what I care about.
Well, exactly. It's funny you say that because I'm a stock market guy. We could have a whole conversation about that. So it's funny you say that. I only follow the financial news. I'm very aware of what's going on politically, ideologically. I'm in tune.
I mean, China is fascinating, but that's a different.
Don't talking about Evergreen, man, and the supply chain issues. Shit, we got to talk about wrestling. So the COVID thing, though, right? I used to follow it. There's so much noise. I stopped kind of watching COVID particularly. I know that I'll hear about it, so I don't really know what's coming. We'll see. And if they tell us we got to slow down, we got to slow down. But I think with vaccines and stuff, there's personal choice, and someone can say, okay, I'm not going to attend, or I'm going to attend and I'm vaccinated, and that's kind of where we're at. But I think wrestling in general, I think is back off running, man. I think wrestling in general is just going to keep growing. I think I got AEW fucking up here. It's noticed. I think it's going to continue to grow the wrestling world. I think people like on my level, independent wrestlers, love seeing an AEW because, I'll be honest, now I think it's the place most people aspire to be if you're an indie wrestler. We all grew up watching WWE, and I think right now I'm going to bet that if you polled like 10 indie wrestlers, where do you want to get to? I bet 9 of them or 10 of them say AEW. You know, no one's going to take, no one's going to, oh, not so, but we probably don't turn down a WWE contract if they come at you, but I'm over 30 and under 6 foot.
You don't turn down a WWE contract if you want your payday, and that's where you want to be, and you want to make money. And also, and I'm going to say something that's going to sound sexist, but if you're, somebody like Carmella or somebody like, Eve Marie, you go into WWE, you have 5 years, maybe 7 or 8 years, and then you create a yoga class, and then you have built-in branding. And Trish Stratus is a great example of that, where Trish is a great wrestler, but she made a lot of money coming out of WWE with her yoga program for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And she made probably just as much money, if not more money, from that. And it's very
absolutely.
It's very important to understand that from a business position, Chelsea Green made a lot more money when doing a lot of that modeling stuff and doing her calendars, and it really subsidized her income tremendously, and it will help her in the long run, and it's still helping her greatly. So there are reasons to be in WWE. Alexa Bliss will make more money out of WWE than in, and she's making good money in WWE.
You've mentioned a few things about just business and investing and things like this, and I think I like getting to talk about that. There's one thing that younger people may don't see. Unless you want to work a fucking shitty job all your life, you have to create a product or a service and scale it, and you have to get attention and eyes on your product. You're right. You talk about Trish Stratus, for example, right? Okay, you wrestle, that comes to an end one day. Got to make money. What should you go do? Work at the fucking? You should be an accountant? No, it's like I have people that follow me. I'm going to sell a fitness product, and I have a reach now, and I can be successful. And then, again, unless you want to go work and fucking, glue tires together every morning or something, it's like you have to be a scale and reach people, man. Get your shit out there.
And look, there's nothing wrong with, having a day job and saying, look, I wrestled for 20 years and now I just want to flip houses, or I just want to sell real estate, and I have no desire to be on social media. But during your time as a wrestler, if you're making, $800,000 a year, you should be figuring out how to invest, so that you don't.
I've got an end date. Yeah.
and I think that's a big problem with a lot of people. It's a big problem in indie comics. It's a big problem in the world, is that people don't have an end game. Again, there's a lot of covenants on my life on how much money I need to save and make and sell and flip comics every single month. Correct. That goes into the stock market, goes into dividend stocks, because I don't want to be poor. And I have a lot of freedom, and it's very important, and I understand that by the time I'm 40, I want to be worth at least $1 million. And I legitimately, in the next, 9 years, need to figure that out. But I think it's doable if you come up with a plan and you do it correctly.
And people don't realize that that's necessary, right? It sounds like, I want to be in there. It's like, brother, you better. You want to retire one day? What are you going to do? Work till you're 85?
If you have $1 million when you're 35 and you put it into an S&P fund, theoretically, and it's been proven, I'm math. Obviously, it's not a science. It's not an exact science. But every 10 years or so, or every 8 years, I think the S&P doubles. So if you have enough, a lot of life and a lot of wealth building is how many doubles you can get in life. And if you have $1,000 and you double to 2,000, and the next time doubles, 2,000 doubles to 4, and then you have exponential growth. And
I love that we're talking about index funds, by the way. Yeah.
We could talk about growth mutual funds too. We could talk about dividend stocks.
We could talk. Don't get me started. I could talk for an hour about the world of investing. When I'm not wrestling or work, that's kind of my shit. I don't talk about it on Twitter because no one knows, right? And money's the devil. But yeah.
I put up on the graphics, comic book investor. My comic books, I buy a comic for $10 and then I'll sell it for $50. And I have a whole time of 4 months, which is really hard to do in a stock.
That's right.
And then I take that and then I move it from a high risk investment down into a lower risk investment, like an AT&T
Yeah.
that produces me $2.08 a year, and I don't care what AT&T does. AT&T, awesome.
Yep. Yeah. Who gives a shit, right? Yeah, exactly. No, that's right. So you have a product, you make a return on it. It's a high risk. You put it now. You put it in something a little more stable. That's
But it
the
gets
gotta
better.
build this
It gets better because then I don't take out the full amount. I take out only the profits of
Yep.
what eBay takes out. I then buy another $10 item and I take out the
Yep.
profits, and then I continue it, and it becomes a perpetual machine that only required an initial investment of one time. So I only had to make one sacrifice
Yep.
because then it funds itself.
You wholesale and then resale all online?
No, I don't even wholesale. I buy at market. I just know
Okay.
what to buy that's valuable. If I was wholesaling, I don't have a wholesale license.
Yeah.
And I just haven't gotten one yet. And it's also sort of a pain in the ass. And
Yes.
you have to make minimum orders. And I feel that from my business standpoint, I would not be good in that realm.
Sure.
And so I feel like I can make more money by basically buying at retail or buying at the comic shop or buying at a 30% discount on previews.
Interesting.
And also I don't have to pay a license. I don't have to deal with tax filings
Sure.
the same way, where when you're wholesaling, you don't pay taxes on the front end. You pay tax on the back end.
Yep.
And you need to deal with an accountant, and it becomes a lot more complicated versus, dealing with things on, more without having the upfront costs.
Sure, absolutely. My girlfriend and I used to do resale on Amazon. We'd go to flea markets and shit and buy things, flip them on Amazon.
I do that too.
I sell fucking journals on Amazon. I have a book on Amazon. I'm all about the gig economy, man, and making cash. Generating cards. Funny that you say this about investing. Probably no one knows this. Basically, 100% of all wrestling income I make is invested into growth stocks or index funds or something of the like. So if I get an extra whatever I make, if you buy a fucking Nate Matthews t-shirt, all right, I'd probably put that thing in some Nvidia stock, all right. But that's what you have to do, right? What am I gonna do? Go buy a fucking pair of sneakers? Like, come on.
No, there's nothing wrong that if you're, just for those who are interested, like every once in a while, like I'll sell a comic and I'll buy some personal. There's nothing wrong if you do that.
You're better than me, man. Yeah.
What?
You're better than me, man. I'm like a stickler. I'm like, it's extra money. It goes in. Yeah.
So every once in a while, like if I sell, $5,000, I'll spend $200 on myself,
Yeah.
because, I've worked my ass off.
Sure.
And my profit margin is 60%. I could say, hey, I want a new video game, or I want, to play Resident Evil and I want to play Street Fighter on my Xbox. That's $100 or it's $120.
Yep.
That's not an issue. But versus the majority of it is going into investing, because why wouldn't it? It's so important that it does. And I also understand that at some point, this is my retirement plan because I'm going to live off of my dividends.
Yep.
And then also I get the power of fuck you, because
you have
you have ADGs coming in every single year in dividends. And to get ADGs, it's not the easiest thing, or if you have $1 million in your bank, you have a lot of power over your life.
You have your freedom back, right? And that's what's important about it, in your time.
Like right now, because Mixum covered my costs, and for me to do this show, it's very inexpensive. I can choose who I want as a sponsor for the next 11 months. I have 11 months to find my stuff. Obviously, I'm running a project. I'm running a Kickstarter to get more funding, because the more money I have, the less times I have to kickstart.
That's right. The more opportunities you have. Yeah.
So if I could raise $15K one time on Kickstarter, I don't have to come back to Kickstarter, but I will, because it's a great venue to do it. And I'm not going to lie that some of it's going into the business, some of it's going off the side, and I'm going to pay myself too on that Kickstarter, because I view myself as talent in this project, and talent deserves to be paid.
Hey man, brothers got to eat. Do what you got to do.
I got no problem admitting where that money's going to, and I understand that I have to get paid first.
Absolutely.
So anyway, this is a total aside, but
yes,
this is a perfect place to end. I had no idea how we were going to get here, and I did not expect to end here, so I'm super stoked that we did. But I do want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself. So where can people find you on social media? Where can people find you? Facebook pages, Instagram? Obviously, where can people just give you money so you could go invest more? You know,
Right.
buy some of that NVIDIA stock, T-shirts.
Damn right. It's future, brother. That's right, man. Yeah, thank you, man. This has been fun. I love that we talked about index funds and investing and life and philosophy and existence and everything. We could go for a long time. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Evolved1NM. Facebook, just friend me as Nate Matthews. Don't send me the weird fucking DMs. Guys, it's always old guys.
Yeah, don't send a dick pic, you know?
Yeah, man. I get the weirdest shit.
I've never gotten one. It's weird.
I haven't either, but I get some weird fucking questions. Anyways, on that note, right? So you're gonna Twitter, Instagram, everything. Find me, Nate Matthews. Watch my shit. New Wave Pro, absolutely. You can find me. I plan to be on every fucking show they'll have me. IWTV, man. I'm still the BMFX Grand All Invitational Champion in Lafayette, Indiana. That's coming up soon. Handful of places I'll be wrestling soon. Check out my recent match if you haven't on IWTV with Eric Dillinger. A lot of people have said so much shit about it. It was the match of my career. If you haven't,
I gotta get him on too.
With that, yeah, get Eric on, man. Eric is fantastic. On that note, I'll finish with I gotta promote the boys, man. Myself, Eric Dillinger, Aaron Atlas, and Matt Brannigan. We have a fucking Twitter click, man. We're a Seinfeld group. We're Clickfeld, and I can't get a retweet out of Jerry Seinfeld to save my fucking life. Listen, man, you've seen the show Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. Matt Brannigan and I have a fucking idea. If you've seen our Seinfeld videos, it's for an HBO show called Wrestlers in Cars Doing Cocaine. But we need Jerry Seinfeld to retweet us so we can get the rub and get that Ted Danson money so we can pay for the show.
I have a great Jerry Seinfeld story.
Okay.
So my dad's a big Seinfeld fan, and he's a New York Met fan.
Yes.
And Jerry Seinfeld bought a piece of the Mets at one point. And obviously before Steve Cohen sort of bought out his interest with Bill Maher. And so there was the All-Star game, and it had the blue and orange stitches on it. And so I was in a comedy club, and Jerry was doing stand-up. And he brought that ball there. Jerry signed it apparently for free because I think Seinfeld doesn't need money. So what does he care? You know, he's worth, over $1 billion easily. Right. And then the guy got the ball PSA DNA'd, and then I bought the ball off of eBay, and I gave it to my dad for Father's Day, like 2 years ago. And really cool because if it wasn't PSA DNA'd, my dad wouldn't have known. But I think it's a great investment.
Wow,
that's cool. But it's the idea that there's like probably only one or two of them in the world.
Sure.
I mean, it can be reproduced technically, but it's a pain in the ass to do it. But Seinfeld is so yes. We should start this.
If Jerry would give out retweets like he gives out fucking autographs, maybe I'd be on HBO. Anyways, I tell you, I get no respect. But yeah, watch our Seinfeld Twitter videos. They're oddly kind of popular, and I think they're kind of entertaining. Just on that note, too, we got to get Matt Brannigan back here for November, man. He's in California. We got to get him out here, dude. It's going to be a Festivus miracle. If we can get Matt Brannigan out here, we're going to fucking celebrate Festivus with the boys. All right, it's going to be filmed for no one to give a shit about. So, yeah, find me on Twitter. Watch my Seinfeld shit and watch my suplexes, man. And I'm going to try to keep creating some positive stuff while I'm here.
Well, I just sent you a friend request with a bunch of weird messages. So,
oh, right on, brother. I won't get back to you. Yeah.
I expect you not to accept, clearly.
I'll leave you undelivered, yeah.
Exactly. That's how we roll here. And even going further off all this, obviously you need to support indie wrestling, and the way you support indie wrestling is you need to watch indie wrestling.
Yes.
Secondly, you need to retweet when indie wrestling is on or when it comes out, because New Wave is still not streaming, but they come out pretty quickly, and you guys are eventually going to get to streaming at some point. And so retweeting really helps. Retweeting wrestlers helps. Retweeting ideas and what wrestlers say. Obviously, following them on Twitter, following them on Instagram, Facebook, checking them out. Also, buying their merch. Especially because buying a wrestler's merch subsidizes, what they're doing at a show. Nobody gets paid what they're worth. And well, if a bunch of people buy your T-shirts, whether they buy it at a show or in, online, or sometimes wrestlers have deals with other wrestlers, that helps tremendously.
Yes.
So buying merch is a big deal, and also wearing that merch is a big deal because it's a gigantic advertisement. Really? And so that's something that needs to be done. And you need to do all three of them. And you need to actually go to wrestling shows. And if you don't want to go to wrestling shows because of COVID, you're letting the dust settle, you need to watch on IWTV or anywhere else where it's at. Or if matches are free on YouTube, you need to watch there because it does all go back to the wrestlers directly and indirectly. And also, I'm an indie content creator. I do have sponsors. I'm going to be adding a few more. But again, I appreciate when people buy me a coffee. I got a link up there. It is tough, and I appreciate anybody who supports me, whether you're buying me a coffee, you're buying me 30 coffees, or you're just sharing this out because, your friend might be a wrestler, and, algorithms are not as good as they used to be on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And so sharing this with somebody is so helpful.
Absolutely.
New Wave retweeted it, really helpful. And I appreciate everybody who shares this out more so than money because more people that see it, obviously that helps you, that helps me. And I am much happier about that. So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been fun. We got to talk about some different shit, man. So thanks for having me. I hope some people get a kick out of this podcast, man. Maybe some people will learn to invest after this. If you guys need stock advice, hit me up, man. Hey, Andrew, my man, up here will help. We'll steer in the right direction, man. Buy some Nate Matthews merch so I can buy some more NVIDIA stock so that my kid can fucking go to college, watch my Seinfeld shit. And hey, Jerry, give me that retweet, brother. That's it, man. Thank you.
I can't top that, so that's a wrap.
Rock on, bro.